Welcome to Coach Fireside Chat, the podcast where we strip away the glamour and get straight to the heart of coaching. No scripts, no filters, just honest, raw conversations with coaches who are out there making a real impact. I'm Karl Sandland, your host and growth strategist for coaches. I work with coaches to help them build, scale, and create lasting impact in the industry. And in this podcast, I sit down with experienced coaches to deep dive into their journey, their struggles, their breakthroughs, and their unfiltered take on what it really means to be a coach. Whether you're an aspiring coach looking to grow your practice, or you're searching for the right coach to support your personal or professional transformation, this podcast is for you. Real talk about the coaching world from those who are doing the work and changing lives. So grab a seat by the fire and let's get into it. Welcome back to Coach Fireside Chat, the raw, real talk podcast where we cut through the noise and focus on what actually works in the real world. I'm your host, Karl Sandland, business growth strategist, tech tamer, and the one making sure that every conversation here leaves you with something you can actually bloody use. And today's guest is here to tackle one of the biggest sticking points in the coaching world, and that's niching down. We're told to specialize, but when you love helping people with all kinds of challenges, it can feel like picking a niche means cutting off opportunities. So Helen Piper is a niche coach who helps coaches get past that second guessing, gain total clarity, and create a business that actually feels completely aligned. She knows this struggle personally, which is exactly why she's so passionate about guiding others through it. An accredited coach and therapist, Helen uses a unique blend of tools from hypnotherapy to powerful client timeline process to help coaches uncover their authentic strengths, tap into what makes them truly unique, and design a niche that not only serves their ideal clients, but also feels effortless to deliver. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why niching down feels wrong at first, but it's actually your key to success, the common mindset blocks that keep coaches stuck, how hypnotherapy can reveal your authentic path and passions, and how to turn your life experiences into a niche that stands out and sells. So if you've been spinning your wheels wondering who you really help and how to say it, this conversation will change the game for you. Let's get into it. Welcome, Helen.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. It's something that so many people struggle with. So, Helen, just before we get started on looking specifically at tips, techniques on niching down, give me a little bit about your background in coaching and therapy, why that mix is so special that you bring to the party.
I used to work for the NHS, so I've always wanted to help people. That's been something that I've felt passionate about my whole life. However, I was just admin in the NHS. So I kind of reached a point where I felt like I wasn't doing enough to help people, and I've got more to offer. And I've always been into holistic modalities, lots of different therapies. There's a lot of different tools that I use, like Reiki, cacao ceremonies, hypnotherapy, and more. And I just kind of wanted to find a way to bring everything together and really make a difference with people. And so I discovered coaching and decided at around 40, why not, before it gets too late, why not turn everything around, leave my job and start my own business. So, yeah, bit of a brave move, but it felt right. I needed to do more and I wanted to do more for people. And I feel like coaching was a good way of doing that. It's a very positive way of moving forward. I can be a bit of a tough love type person at times. So I think, coaching kind of embraces a bit of that. And it's very much about understanding where people are and where they want to go and helping them get there and keeping them accountable. And that kind of fitted me well. And then being able to bring in the holistic side as well, I think they really complement each other really nicely. And if you get that perfect mix, you can really make powerful changes in people's lives. So yeah, that's kind of how I started the journey.
And I think that's a really powerful blend, isn't it? There's a lot of people, I think, when they start coaching, they think about, well, what's the most profitable niche? And they're
Yeah.
constantly then trying to go out and sell who they're not, to find something that links with you, links with your beliefs, your core values, and to tap into that makes for a much more powerful way then of engaging with people and getting your message out there, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a common trap that we can all fall into, because there's that kind of, I know for myself, I made that mistake. There's that desperation of needing this to succeed. If you're taking that leap of leaving being an employee, it's a risk, right? You still need to pay your rent or your mortgage or whatever it is. You've got to live. So there is that kind of feeling that you have to find something profitable, which you do. But you also need to remember that people can smell BS a mile away. So if you're not being genuine and you're not really doing it for the right reasons, people are going to pick up on that, and they're not going to want to purchase anything from you, services, products, whatever it is, because they don't trust you. So I think that's why it's really important that whatever niche you end up with, it's something that aligns with you, and understanding that your niche can grow with you. You might start with a specific thing, but as you develop and you get more clients and your coaching business grows and you grow, that can develop into something else, and that's okay. You don't have to start at the beginning and say, that's my niche and that's it, I can't change it.
I'd be screwed. I think I've changed mine. God, in 4 years since I've had the business, probably about 6 or 7 times, and maybe even refined some of those perhaps 2 or 3 times. So all in all, I've probably had about 10 to 15 different sort of targeted audiences over the years. And as you say, that's right, because you grow and you learn with it, right? What were your key struggles that you had when you first started trying to identify your own niche?
I think there was a big mix of things. So I think everything that I learnt became the new thing. So a bit like shiny object syndrome, where you get something new and you go, oh, because I'm with you, I've changed niche. I'm well into double figures on how many times I've changed my niche or tweaked it or, done something with it.
Ray, it's not only me.
We're in it together. So I think, for example, when I discovered cacao, which is like chocolate essentially, but at like superfood, holistic modality, do cacao ceremonies, I became the cacao coach, because that was something I really enjoyed. And I thought, oh, okay, I can use this to move forward. And as much as I can use cacao as a tool, it wasn't about what my coaching was focusing on. And so my message was getting lost because the cacao wasn't aligning with where I wanted to go. So I think sometimes for me, it was very much keeping in mind, I needed to make money. I wanted to be successful. I didn't want to have to go back to having a job. And all these things that I was so excited about sharing with people and showing what a difference they can make to people's lives, that the latest thing that I learned was the new thing that I wanted to share with people, and that became the main focus, rather than going, how can I incorporate this into my coaching as a powerful tool that will help people move forward, rather than saying, this is what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I use a bit of an analogy of, you've got a carpenter, right? You don't look for an expert chiseler or an expert screwdriver user, right? They're the tools that they're using as part of their trade. You're looking for someone to hang your doors, or you're looking for someone to fit a new banister, right? Because that's the problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, you're potentially going to look for somebody who's got all of these expertise in using all these other tools. That just helps with part of the decision making. But ultimately, that's not the problem you're looking to solve. So, I think a lot of coaches, I'm a this coach, I'm a that coach, and they're just spitting out the tools they use, the techniques, the modalities they're using. And it's like, but nobody really knows, outside coaching, nobody really knows what that is.
No.
Someone's lost in life, or someone's got an addiction, or somebody's got this, or somebody's got that. That's the problem that we should be focusing on, right?
Absolutely. And I think as well, coaching is still in a lot of places not that well known. I know it's becoming bigger, but I think there's still a lot of people out there that don't really know what coaching is. So if you say life coach, it is something that people have heard about. They recognize that term, even if they still don't know what it is. But if you say I'm a, like you said, transition coach, what does that mean to people? So I think sometimes niche can get very confused with marketing. And I think those are the two where they can kind of end up bouncing off each other a little bit. And it's about separating those to make it clear that, no, I am a life coach. If that's how you understand it, I'm a life coach. But this is what I help people with. And sometimes it's just that difference can make a big impact on how people can move forward with what they're doing.
Absolutely. So people have fears about niching down, as we covered in the intro. And again, myself, I was very similar when I started off. It's like, I can't just target that very small audience. I'd much rather be in front of many. Okay, you very soon realize that being a generalist actually doesn't help at all, and you need to be very specific. But what are the key fears that you come across with people who are reluctant to niche down, and how do you help them get past that and see the light and realize the power of niching down?
A variety of ways.
Hot poker in the eye, a whip. Yeah.
It's different for a lot of people, but I suppose the underlying kind of constant is that fear of not reaching out to anybody and not having the key right message. Like, what if I go out there with this one particular message and nobody understands it? I think sometimes it can very much come down to, if I say the wrong thing, is that it? Have I kind of blown my chance almost? And I think the word niche seems to come with a real finality for a lot of people. Like, I've got to get it right first time round. And the thought of having to change it is quite a big thing. Also, I would say one of the other biggest problems is imposter syndrome. I think a lot of coaches want to put stuff out there, but they worry that they aren't qualified enough. They're not enough of an expert. I'll just do this course and then I'll put it out there. Or I'll just do this and then I'll put it out there. And actually, yeah, of course, there's an element of that. But none of us are a full expert in anything in some ways, because everything develops all the time. Things change, even within just business in itself. Things like algorithms on social media change. So what course you do that tells you a certain way to negotiate social media might have been relevant, I don't know how quickly they change, a year ago. And now the algorithms change and it's not quite so relevant. So, and I think a big thing that I like my clients to start to get to grips with is it's about what you bring to the table. People will either resonate with you or they won't. One example I use is things like a meditation class. There's lots of different people out there that will do meditation groups, and people will go to those meditation groups. But they've all got their own little clients that go to them because they resonate with that meditation teacher or space holder and not another one. But then these people over here resonate with this one, so they go to those classes and not these classes. So, and I think that's one of the biggest realizations that they have, is that actually by bringing themselves to the forefront and showing who they are and just being open and honest about their journey and what they've been through, people will either resonate with it or they won't. And those that resonate with it will then come forward and want to know more and start to become a part of your world.
That's such an important point, because ultimately, in marketing and selling, we're always looking for, well, what's your USP? What's the thing that you can bring that nobody else can? Well, everybody has always got a USP, and that's you. No one else is you. No one else has had your experiences, what you bring to the party. So make yourself your USP.
Yeah.
And make sure that your character and who you are, your beliefs, your core values come out in everything else you put out there, because that alone sometimes will attract people.
Yeah.
This is the irony. Sometimes you will attract people who hadn't thought of coaching because they're attracted to you and what you stand for. And then, oh, God, you could coach. Oh, you might better help me with this. And you can potentially end up coaching somebody who wasn't even looking for a coach.
Exactly. And I think, that's one of the biggest realizations that my clients can have, is just authentically be you, and you will resonate with people and they will find you and they will come to you for your help. And yes, there will be people that don't come to you, but that's okay. That's not a problem. You want the people that resonate with you to come to you. So, you know, the law of averages are, yes, of course there's going to be some people that don't resonate with it, but there will always be people that do. There's enough people out in the world to go around everybody.
My belief is that I would much rather polarize and get rid of and repel people who are not interested in who I am, what I do, than them sitting around on my friends list, sitting around in my email list. I would rather get rid. I want to focus on people who I do resonate with or do resonate with me, my message. So I'm okay with being polarizing. I'm okay with calling things out and being a little bit controversial every now and again, because that's my belief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, you either share that or you don't. And if you don't, well, then you were never going to work with me anyway. So it's not for you. You know what I mean? Stop reading. and
Yeah.
I guess for me, when I sort of like got to that level of, in a way, almost personal safety, you know, realizing that this, I can say what I want within reason.
Yeah.
I can say what I want, and I don't care about being judged for it, because the outcome of being judged will be they'll stay or go, and for me that is still a result.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's quite powerful again. But again, that's tapping into making sure that you are part of what it is you're doing and putting out there in your message, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I go backwards and forwards with that, if I'm honest. There's a lot of things where, yeah, I will maybe not have the time on my hands, so I'll just think, oh, I'll just leave it. But every now and then something will catch my eye and I'll engage, but not in a way of desperation of like, oh, I need to change their mind, but in a way of trying to just put out there are other perspectives out there, and that's okay. Like, you might not agree with me, and that's absolutely fine, but should you ever change your mind, you come back to me, because I'll be more than happy to help you. Because sometimes I think people expect almost an aggressive response, or a, you know, kind of almost like an argument in those kind of situations with like comments on social media and stuff like that. So I think sometimes by going back and kind of diffusing it a little bit and being like, that's absolutely okay, change your mind, come back to me, not a problem, it can almost stop them in their tracks a little bit, because they don't expect it. And I've won a few people round with that tactic. Like I say, not one that I would necessarily recommend doing all the time. But if you've got a bit of time and something really strikes you, and there's just that kind of gut feeling that maybe, no, there's something hidden behind that I want to try and help them with, then it's, you know, give it a go. But you do have to be fairly resilient as well, I think, so that it doesn't become a personal pain.
100%. But then you'll get there. But then you've got to have gone through the pain of getting offended to then realize that getting offended was not worth it. Right?
Yeah. It's part of the growing
lessons.
of business as well, I think, you know, isn't it?
It is. And on that point, I think it's very important. Now, this has been raised on a few different episodes of late. And that's disassociating yourself with some of the outcomes and not getting too caught up in what's happening in between. You know, ultimately, if you're trying to, you know, to sell to clients, you're going to have to get a lot more no's than you're going to get yeses. So get okay with getting no's.
Yeah.
In fact, race through the no's as quickly as possible without taking offense, because you're going to be heading towards getting a yes. And there's just quite a few different mindset shifts that I think to do with resilience that you've got to have within business. You're not going to get it right first time. In fact, you're probably not going to get it right the first 5 times. Be okay with that. I go again the 6th time, because it will eventually come, whether that's niche or the way you're trying to sell or whatever you're looking at, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a real roller coaster.
So I'm interested in how you're using hypnotherapy within what you're doing. Well, I understand the basics of it, but, you know, I have no knowledge of it as a modality or practicing it. How does that work when you're trying to help a client identify their niche? I mean, I'm interested.
Okay. Well, so the hypnotherapy is still quite new to me. So I've only recently trained in hypnotherapy. So I've been using it on my later clients. And so the whole idea of hypnotherapy is that you basically get someone into a meditative state. It's not like you see on telly. You know, I'm not getting people to jump up and down and do impressions of animals and things like that. It's nothing like that. You're still very much in control, which I think is something that people like to know because of what you see on TV and stuff, you know. And it's just very much diving into that subconscious and letting the subconscious brain rework some pathways to make things a bit clearer. So, for example, with my clients and focusing on niche, I don't necessarily put the focus fully on the niche part of it, but it's about having clarity around your business, about being able to tune into your gut feeling or your intuition, however you want to call that, and really just knowing the direction to go forward. I think sometimes, and I know I'm certainly guilty of it, I can sit there and I can work hard, but it might not be working smart. And I think the hypnotherapy side can really help. I use like a symbol and get them to connect to a specific symbol that they choose. And the idea behind that is then they can be sitting working away, and either that symbol will suddenly just come to them and the subconscious will kick in, or they can themselves go, oh, this feels a bit overwhelming. Think of that symbol, and the subconscious should then kick in and rework all those pathways to, like I say, depending on what the person's needs are. But generally, it will be things like clarity around decision making, following your gut instincts, having that confidence and knowing that you can get there instead of dwindling on making a decision. You positively move forward, knowing it's okay either way. Even if it doesn't work out, you learn from it, right? So it's okay. So it's just kind of about using it to get that clarity around your business and having the confidence to move forward with something and try and eliminate a lot of the back and forth, a lot of the doubt, a lot of the questioning yourself in that process. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes absolute sense. And it's a powerful modality to use because, there's those blockers that we have, things that I think that it helps because they're in that suggestive meditative state, that it's going to help to sort of like make them see past that and make them see the alternative outcome of the thing that they're afraid to try, right?
Yeah, that's it. And what I'll do with my clients is the first part of that session would be talking to them and understanding what their fears are, and then where they'd like to be and how they'd like that to change. And then it kind of incorporates it all together through the hypnotherapy, and then the brain can start reworking all those pathways to make that new pathway that says, oh, actually, it doesn't mean that anymore. It means that. And then you start going down that new path, and it just shifts you over a lane. It's probably one of the best ways I can explain it.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. So you're a niche coach. However, it's not just helping them with identify their niche. I'm assuming then that there's also part of constructing an offer and constructing where they go once they've decided who their target audience, their messaging is, right?
Ish. So what I like to try and do, I do feel like in this day and age with money problems and things that people have just generally everywhere, committing to a 12-week coaching program is a lot of money and a lot of time for people to commit to. So what I do is I kind of split it into two groups. So there's either like new coaches who haven't really started their business yet, and they're trying to find their niche so that they can then go into starting their business. So usually with any coaches like that, I would offer like a 6-week package just to help them gain that clarity and use the timeline, which I know we'll chat about in a bit, the hypnotherapy and all of that, just to help them get those solid foundations of then how they're going to move forward. If people want to then extend their time with me and do some more business side of things, absolutely fine, we can do that. But the main focus for me in those first 6 weeks for them is to just help them get past that hurdle of what's my niche going to be? I don't know how to pick it. What if I pick the wrong one? All those questions. Let's eliminate those so you can actually focus on your business. The other side of that is existing coaches and people that have already got their coaching business, but maybe aren't seeing quite the results that they would like to see. And with people like that, I like to offer like a 4-week program because they don't need necessarily all the same input that a brand new coach needs, but it's more for them about refining their message and understanding their niche to a point of knowing what bits are relevant to be talking to get your clients to come to you. So sometimes I've had clients where they will focus on the positive outcome, which is great. But people are in their pain and they're not necessarily looking for the positive outcome. They're looking for an answer to that pain that they're in. So it's about bringing you back and kind of going through those steps that your clients are going through to know what you need to use to put out there to bring them to you, right? So, I kind of see it as the two sides of things. So I offer the two different packages to do that so that I think it's manageable for either side, depending how new a coach you are, really.
And it's great that you're meeting people where they're at, because again, there's quite a few coaches who, I don't want to use the word now, but niche to the extent that they will only take people at a certain part on a journey. Whereas I think the more established, more experienced coaches, mentors will meet a client where they're at and have a product or service that meets them at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or in some cases says, well, sorry, no, you're not at the right point. I now do not take new coaches on. I will only take a coach on who's established, understands their niche, and is ready to actually start building software, business systems, websites, funnels, which you don't necessarily need right at the start. So why would I take somebody on who doesn't need what I have when they're still trying to figure out who they are, what they're doing, and who they're trying to sell to?
That makes sense, right? Because you could take somebody on and take their money from them and they still not get anywhere because they're not clear on their message. So actually, I think that's credit to you that you're saying you're not quite in the right place yet, and I'm not going to take your money to you not get anywhere still. Come back to me when you've got an established business that you've started, and then we can really look at putting these things in. You know, anyone could sit and take money to actually say, no, I don't think it's right at the moment. There is credit to that. But I think when you're helping somebody through a journey, there's not just one specific pain point of a journey. Usually, you know, there's the main pain, yes, but there's all little bits that branch off of that. And that's where I bring the timeline in. So the timeline basically is about, I ask my clients to go away and think of all the stages that you've gone through within whatever kind of niche they're looking at using. And the whole point of that is it gives you such a roadmap for where you can go with understanding your client, with what content to make, with which bits of your story are variables and may not apply to everybody. So therefore, it's not really worth focusing on those because not everyone's going to get it. How to then coach people through your coaching program, however long you decide that can be. If you know whereabouts they are in that journey, yes, there's always going to be different parts for different people, but generally there's a pattern that you will go through to get out the other side of that problem. So by planning all of that out and understanding the timeline that people go through that specific pain, can help target different areas for different content, for different types of client, but also target your coaching program to move them through from where they are. So I think it's very different. If it's very business focused, like yourself, it's different. You can kind of say, no, you're not in the right place. Come back to me in 6 months. But anyone who's going through some sort of pain and trauma, there's always some sort of stage that you can take them on and help them through. You don't have to cut them off and say no, because we all want to help people, right?
Well, that's meant to be why we're here as coaches, mentors, right? Because we want to help.
Yeah.
The timeline, it's an interesting exercise. I used to use the timeline slightly differently.
Yeah.
But for the same sort of outcome.
Okay.
I would use it to, not within the tech related stuff, it's when I was helping startup coaches. But I think sometimes people lose or forget the power in their own story. And I think to get them to timeline the challenges, the successes, and physically map out those peaks and troughs, for them to then look at what I call try and find the hero's journey in that timeline. Quite often they identify a massive hero's journey, which was not the niche they were originally thinking of, and yet it was a massive challenge that they overcame. And because they'd overcome it, they sort of put it to back of mind. And yet when they then started to look at, well, yeah, but there's loads of people in that state, isn't there? And they'll all be thinking this, feeling this, and trying this, and failing with this thing. So I think it is such a powerful exercise to bring back into the forefront of someone's mind, and the fact that actually that's probably going to resonate quite a bit with quite a few people.
Absolutely. And I think it helps with imposter syndrome as well, because you can look at that and go, oh, I went through all of that and I came out the other side. Maybe this doubting myself, I shouldn't doubt myself as much because look how far I've come. you know so I think the timeline is quite
Survived.
yeah, exactly. But I think it's quite underestimated how powerful that can be, because like I say, it can cover so many things with your content, with your program. It's a real eye-opening exercise, but such a powerful one, and one that I find has a really big impact on my clients, because they do feel like, even if they're looking at things further down the line that they're not going to use straight away, they've got a kind of roadmap of where things can go and how it could develop. And it's almost like trying to get everything out of your brain onto a bit of paper. I'm old school. Most people probably do it on a computer, but I'm a pen and paper girl.
iPad and Apple Pencil.
You're quite tech.
a mix. Yeah. It's still like pen and paper.
But it's just so good to kind of get some of that brain fuzz out and have some clarity and be able to overlook it like a helicopter view sort of thing.
It's such a powerful technique to use. And again, like you said, just picking up one of the points you made there, it also potentially gives you that roadmap for where you're going to go next as well. Because yes, they might niche down on a particular part of that hero's journey, but because they are already well beyond that themselves, it's like, well, what do you think your client's going to need once they've gone through your first program? Maybe you've got a follow-on program or a membership or something else that then covers the next stages in the journey that you've already been through. So it's actually good for coming up with almost like a product suite, because it's all about helping someone solve a problem now, and then what's the next thing they're going to need, and the next thing they're going to need, and the next thing they're going to need, right?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people can then look at it and go, I'm going to create a journal for my clients so that, once they've done that, they can journal about their experiences, or a workbook, or a training video, or, all sorts of different things that they can then move on to, because they know the path they're going to take. They've been there, they've done it. And it's about really getting that out there and guiding everybody through those steps.
Quite often it's a tool that they wouldn't necessarily have thought of doing themselves either. For me, the real power that I found was it brings back into their mind things that they disregarded as wasted space in their mind that they weren't necessarily thinking about anymore, which are crucially important. One of the other key things, just referring back to something you said earlier about the fear of not being an expert. And again, we've already covered the fact that, look, in my opinion, no one's ever an expert at anything, right? You might be quite good at something, but it's comparative to what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Compared to what you used to be, you're better now. That doesn't make you an expert. That just makes you better than you used to be. But anyway, a lot of people I used to find would worry about, well, I haven't coached for long, or I've only been qualified for this amount of time. There's people out there who've got so many more years experience and had so many more clients and this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, but you're not necessarily trying to sell to them. You're trying to find somebody who is perhaps 2 or 3 steps behind where you are now.
Yeah.
Right? If you're learning to drive, and I know you're not allowed to do this in the UK, if you're a learner driver, you're not allowed to take another learner driver out. But let's just say you were, and you'd had your first few lessons, and you were now capable of moving the car and understood clutch control and braking, you would be okay to teach another complete novice how to learn clutch control and braking, right? You wouldn't need to be a driving examiner with 20 years experience and 300 driving clients in order to teach somebody some of those basics. And I think that's a really key thing when coaches are starting off. It's like, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a few steps further forward than the clients that you're targeting.
Yeah.
And that will naturally change. And that sort of leads into the other point about your niche refining and changing, because as you gain more and more expertise and have more and more clients, the likelihood is you'd have moved further on your journey. So you'll then probably be targeting clients who are further along on that journey as well. So it's, as soon as you start to realize that and be okay with that, the whole niching down, I'm not an expert, God, are there going to be enough people out there? Well, of course there are. There's millions of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a client who's looking at coaching mums, and
there's not many of them. That's way too niche.
And the thing with that is she's got her take. Again, a lot of it will be about her and her perspective. And, We've talked about how when her child gets older, her motherhood experience will become something completely different. Obviously, as children grow up, they go through different stages, they become people, adults, so there's always something quite nice about that for people that are coaching mums, is that you can develop and they can watch that journey of you developing as a mum as your child develops, and they can do that with you. So yes, there might be a mum out there who's got a child that's older who may resonate, but she may not. But that's okay, because there'll be other mums out there with a child of a similar age that will know exactly what you're going through, and they will come along on that journey with you. So I think, it's remembering things like that, that what you've got will resonate with the right people. And yes, sometimes you'll get the odd anomaly that might come from somewhere completely unexpected. Great. If you can help them, great. But, you've got a core focus that you're going to naturally develop with them. Absolutely fine. That's going to talk to people a lot more than trying to focus on what's profitable, an outcome that people want that they don't necessarily know that they want.
Yeah.
Defining the difference, I think, between business coaching, very clear. I want to grow my business. I want to be successful. I want this. I want that. It's kind of a bit more black and white. Whereas anything to do with people and emotions and feelings, there's lots of variables, so that's the difference, I think.
It is. It's a good point. And you mentioned something there about people not fitting into your niche. I had so many people approach. I think I changed my niche the second or third time because it was weird. My niche resonated with almost like the wrong audience, which was clearly a messaging problem from my perspective, because there were parts of it that were resonating with people I didn't want to attract. However, they wanted to work with me. And I've had a few clients in the past who have been in that situation, and they've said, so yeah, I've turned them away because they're not my ideal client. And it's like, yeah, but could you help them? Just because it's a woman and not a man, is that not okay? They not got the same problem? Well, yeah, but I just might not be able to understand them. And it's like, yeah, okay, is that imposter syndrome kicking in? Is that your own self-doubt kicking in? So, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like a niche is important, but equally be okay as long as somebody that's attracted by it, if they're not your niche, it's still okay if they still fit your core values and have a problem that you can help with and you want to help them with that. It's okay to, I guess, catch a fish that you weren't fishing for with a particular bit of bait, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm very honest with people. I've had male clients. I don't know what it's like to be a man. I'm not one. So I can't answer some of these questions, right? Because I'm not one. So I will say quite openly, I don't know what it's like from a male perspective. But from my perspective, this is what I think. Does that resonate with you? And you can have that conversation. If people resonate with you, they're not looking necessarily for a specific answer that only men would know or only women would know, or they resonate with you. And, part of it as well, we've got to remember, is we're not actually giving people the answers to things. We're helping them discover the answers they've got within themselves. So you don't necessarily have to have that kind of very specific, well, I help women, so I can't help a guy because that's not part of my niche. Well, no, if they resonated with what you're saying and they have approached you for help because it seems right, if you're comfortable with it and you know that it's something you can help them with, go for it. It might be a way to open up your world. It might give you a new experience that you develop part of how you do your coaching, or how you then develop your niche a little bit further. There's nothing wrong with that. It's about remembering, like you say, your core values are very important. And I think that's something that all coaches should know, their core values. And it's also about accepting that, we're not giving the answers. We're helping people find the answers within themselves. Therefore, we can be honest and say, I don't know the answer to that. But with the training that we get and asking the right questions, we don't need to have the answer necessarily. It's about asking the questions to get them to their answer.
100%. So I guess the key things, really, the key takeaways I'd like the listeners to think of is the fact that, look, a lot of the time, it's the initial putting together and getting into the right mindset of creating that initial niche, which is probably the biggest challenge as a new coach.
Yeah.
But once you've sort of got over some of those hurdles and you're okay with it, really it becomes fluid. It becomes something that you just keep tweaking, altering. It's okay to change it. You don't have to be a slave to it. You don't have to turn clients away because they don't perfectly fit it. Because ultimately, a niche, a statement, an I help statement, it's a marketing tool. It's a way in which to put yourself out there to attract. You're trying to attract them to you, and then you'll have a conversation with them. So if it goes slightly off piece and it ends up being somebody who still wants to work with you, still resonates, then that's okay as well. And it's weird, isn't it? So many people get hung up with it. I think what you're doing is fantastic because I think it's one of the key blockers. I think there's 3 blockers for new coaches. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in a minute as well, I think. But I think there's 3 blockers. I'm not ready. I'm not qualified enough.
Yep.
Tech, I need a website. I don't know this. I don't know that. I can't do this. God, how do we do marketing email list? All the shit you don't actually need when you first start off. I think it's the second. And then I think the whole niche messaging piece. Who and what am I going to sell to whom and what problem I'm going to solve?
Yeah.
In essence, if you can work out or get with somebody who can teach you or make you think differently about those 3 things, it will remove some of the blockers that are stopping so many coaches just actually getting out there and speaking to people, because ultimately that's what they need to do. They need to be having conversations with people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first looked at doing this niche, being a niche coach, I did some looking into how coaches succeed, what are their biggest fall downs, and those 3 that you just said are some of the biggest problems as to why coaches fail in the first 2 years of trying to be a coach, is because of the lack of clear message, the imposter syndrome, all of those things, and some more, but generally those are the reasons that people fall down, because it just becomes too much. And I think, sometimes your brain just becomes overcrowded with it all. And I know for myself, I ended up having to just walk away for a bit and just go, right, let's just reset, walk away from everything, and then come back to it once I've cleared my mind a bit, because you can end up working harder, not smarter.
You can. And listen, setting up a business is hard. It doesn't matter whether it's a coaching business, mentoring business, consultancy, a tech business. Setting up a business is not easy. But I can tell you one thing: if you make it harder for yourself, you're much more likely to fail, beat yourself up, burn out, give up. Okay? Yeah. So, really, you need to be speaking to people who can guide you through some of the spaghetti that you've got going on inside your head, which is probably self-made spaghetti, right? Because sometimes it just needs a little bit of a pull on a thread to unravel some of that and give you a bit of clarity and presence and clear of mind, and things will start to make more sense. So if somebody would like to reach out to you, what's the best way of getting in touch with you, Helen?
So I've got Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. I've got a group on Facebook that people can request to join, Nail Your Niche. Or they can go to my website. There's a contact form on my website. There's also a quiz on my website, which is based around finding out a bit more about yourself to give you potential ideas around your niche. So there's a few different ways. I'm
fantastic.
Open to anything. Pop me a DM if you're interested. There's no pressure. We'll have a chat and see how we go.
So I'll make sure that all of those ways of contacting you are on the show notes. So we'll make sure that everybody's got the links so that you can meet them wherever they're at, and whichever way they want to contact you, they can do.
Brilliant. Thank you.
It's been fascinating to talk to you today, Helen. I think it's a fantastic thing, because I think the more new coaches that we can get out there with some great skills, the better, because there's so many who do just give up, get the wrong advice, then start placing ads when they've not even got the messaging clear, and it costs a fortune, and then they give up. And it's like, if only you'd got the right advice on your niche, your messaging, and got your messaging clear, you wouldn't have even needed to run ads. I see it so often.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you're struggling with messaging, niche, how you package up who you are, what you do, and trying to get that out there for the world to see, to try and attract some clients, please do get in touch with Helen. I'm sure she'll set you on the right path. And Helen, thank you again. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Love the fact that we got to talk about timeline. I'd forgotten how much I loved timelines, so I might have to go and do my own timeline again now, just for the hell of it.
Thank you for having me. I've loved it. And yes, obviously, I'm a big fan of timelines too, so I encourage you, go do it.
That's it for this episode, everyone. Thank you very much, Helen. And for everybody else, hope you enjoyed the episode. And we shall see you on the next episode of Coach Fireside Chat. Bye for now. That's it for this episode of Coach Fireside Chat. If you found value in today's episode, please be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an insight-packed conversation. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more real talk on coaching. And don't stop there. Check out other fantastic episodes where I sit down with more incredible coaches who are out there making a real impact. Thanks for tuning in.